Episode 90 of the podcast. This week we're talking about a particular puppy from my work week. We're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with that very silly, very silly puppy, as well as how to deal with the owners and taking some of that training history. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. How do we deal with the silly puppy? Like the silly, crazy, just over the top, cannot hold still puppy. So this is coming straight out of my work week. Little Marley, 14-week-old poodle puppy. I think he's going to be a large mini. I don't think he's going to be big enough to be a standard, but he's definitely big for a mini. Anyway, they got him from a breeder, older couple. I found out that they were having lots of problems with him being grabby, the grabby puppy bitey stuff. And apparently he had been in a shop and it didn't go very well because he's just very silly. So what do you do with a silly puppy? What do you do, right? So I'll tell you what I do. First of all, we make sure that the owners have a realistic expectation. Like you understand that this is not going to be a perfect groom today and we're not going to do a ton. Right? Your puppy needs to learn how to learn. Your puppy needs to learn that this is safe. Your puppy needs a little bit of self-control. And trying to make sure that owners understand that we don't have, it's not about if the puppy is friendly and if the puppy is nice, but there's so much that gets done that with a puppy visit, I want to break it down into some smaller segments instead of trying to get everything done. So when I list off for this particular owner, when I said, but it's also wet, soapy, wet, conditioner, wet, towel, dryer, brushes, combs, then doing trimming, like then that's when it started to dawn on her, like, oh, there are lots of steps. Like that's a lot of focus. That's a lot for a puppy. So we already had that idea in our head that the first couple visits are not going to be, oh, and now he understands. So we're just going to put him in a beautiful trim, right? We can hope for that, of course. I mean, God knows I want a beautiful trim on a dog. But if we give them the chance to understand that this is a lot, considering you're still having a lot of problems with the puppy at home, right? Yeah, they're puppy kind of turns into a baby shark, and I talked to her about my own previously grabby puppy. When I got Brock, he was a very grabby puppy. He was a baby shark. So the realistic expectations, that's really important. So what do I do when I get this puppy on my table? Now this was just see if you can get a little bit more done because, you know, they kind of gave up. They're like, okay, Chrissy's going to take care of this one. Like, come back on Monday. We'll do some more on this one. Okay. And so first of all, I just put the puppy on the table, tried the grooming loop. How's that working? Right? Touching the puppy all over, touching the head, getting around the face, getting around the eyes with my fingers. Right? There's a lot of laughing when I'm dealing with a puppy. And it might seem counterintuitive. You might think, well, we're supposed to be calm. But you know what? You've got to have a sense of humor. They're just super silly little goofballs. And if we can laugh a little bit and goof off with them, I think it's more important in the beginning to first learn that this is safe and this is a person I can trust. And then second, learn how I'm supposed to behave while we're doing stuff. So it's not all just one big party, but there's a lot of party. There's a lot of silly, goofy, and oh my God, puppy. Oh my God. You know, all the silly voices, because we want the puppy to be enjoying themselves and exploring what's going on. Like, oh, look what's going over there. You know, like this dryer turns on. Like, oh, interesting. I didn't put the dryer on the puppy, but I got clipper work, a little bit of clipper work done. I only used the Bravura. So nice, quiet clipper. And I used it with a comb, a little comb on it. Did a little bit on the back, did a little bit of scissoring on legs, did pads, did sanitary, and I did around the eyes with my shears. So it wasn't a full groom. They know that, right? They just kind of wanted to get a feel. But the problems they're having with that puppy being grabby with them didn't happen on the table. How odd, right? He tried it once with me and I let out the ah! And he looked at me like, "Oh, are you okay?" And we went right back to being gentle and silly and goofing off. So that to me indicates that this wasn't a particularly crazy puppy, right? And I did get around his eyes. But the 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 thing is with puppies, they have the attention span of a gnat. Like they just have no attention span at all. So we have to just keep working around in circles. Like, okay, let's touch over here and do a little bit here. Hey, nice puppy. Pet your little play around. Hey, let's try your left hip. Hey, play around. Let's try that right front foot again. Yeah, good job. Play around a little bit. Hey, let's see if we can do something with your tail. Good job. Hey, what's that ear? Hey, and just keep moving to other areas. But the big thing is I'm avoiding letting that puppy get frustrated, right? I don't want the puppy to get frustrated. This isn't about learning I have to deal with frustrating things. This is about learning that this is safe and that this is going to be okay and that these people are nice. So by doing it that way, the puppy can still be a puppy. The puppy can still be goofy and wiggly and, try to climb up on my shoulder. I got some puppy kisses, which, really that's what we're in this for, isn't it? I got some puppy kisses. So, he's climbing up on me and stuff. And then I would be like, calm down again. Right. So the beginning of this particular grooming session, which I think was only about 20 minutes, the beginning was lots and lots of silly. And then it started to be a little bit of like silly and then, oh, just a little bit calm and do something I need to do and back to silly. So we're already making progress. We're already pushing into something different and a little bit more still. Now, when I did get the puppy to be really, really still, like around eyes, I waited there and paused there and let go and went back to silly. You might have thought, well, he's finally being still. I should go for it. But this is an educational groom for the puppy, right? So if he feels like, okay, and now we're doing something near my eyes, and maybe I just, one of the things I did was just line up a comb, right? Pick at his eyes a little bit. But when I got him still enough for me to put the comb down for the first time, I chose to not do the combing. I got him that still, and we just sat there for a moment together. Quietly sat there for a moment without going for it, without going into groomer mode and just pretending he's just hair. And then let go. And then let go. And let him play a little bit. When I went back to do the next thing, he was a different dog. He now has at least one lesson in his head. Like, oh, and we held still and it wasn't bad. So this time he held still and I placed a shear there. I just did a little bit of scissoring. And backed off while he was still, before he became frustrated. This puppy did not get frustrated on my table, and I didn't get frustrated with him. And that's important too. Be thinking about this shouldn't be frustrating, right? So if you are in a mood where you're like, oh my God, I really cannot, then see if somebody else could do the puppy this afternoon. Like if you're in a shop, like, can somebody else have the patience for a puppy today? It's okay to be honest with yourself, especially where it's some of their earliest experiences with grooming can really set the tone for that next 15 years of grooming. I want to set the tone that this is fine. So circling back to what we were doing. So if he was still, I would back off. We'd just hover there still and then back off without necessarily doing combing or brushing or clippering, right? This is now about 7 minutes in, right? The beginning was just crazy, crazy, crazy land. Now we're getting a little bit of stillness and rewarding it with silly, right? What? We can reward with silly? Yes, we can. And then when it's time to do calm again, he was actually at a point where, he's being a little bit calm. Now he's taking in what's going on in the rest of the room. And I know you guys know I'm house call, but I'm also so actually I haven't said this yet on the podcast, but I'm teaching grooming 2 days a week at a grooming academy. So I'm working at Whole Pet Grooming Academy up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and that's a lot of fun. So this was up there. So anyway, he's looking around the room and he's observing other dogs. Now that he's kind of like, oh, there are other things happening in here. But while he's observing other dogs, that's a great time for me to be running a clipper over him. Just a little bit. Like I said, this was a very, very short, bring him in for about 20 minutes, see if we can get a little bit done. You know, I ran the bravura with a snap-on comb over his back, just a little bit of stuff. Took the scissors. He was actually standing still. I just took the scissors, kind of went around his legs, got a chance to get some of that scissoring in. And his impression was, this really wasn't so bad, right? So what's the next step with a puppy, right? I picked him up, took him off the table, snuggled him, walked him around a little bit. I passed him to somebody else because especially at that age, like, yeah, this is past the puppy age. This is learning about people. But I asked her to put him on the table too, right? Do you mind just putting him on the table? Let him think that everybody here just has this weird fetish about putting puppies on tables and brushing them, which is kind of what we do. So, yeah, so she picked him up too. She's like, oh, hi, little puppy. You know, we're playing with him a little bit and put him on the table and put him back on the grooming loop. So now he's getting another repetition of, I got passed to a person, I got put on a table, I'm on a grooming loop, and there's a little bit of brushing, right? Because how do we learn? We learn through repetition. How do we learn? Through repetition. How do we learn? Repetition, right? So if we can do a bunch of repetitions during one grooming session, then we have this chance for the puppy to get the idea like, oh, that's not a bad thing. You know, I mean, I circled back to each of those paws over and over and over again. I circled back to holding him in such a way that I could get, you know, his armpits, or I could get his sanitary area, or I could get under his paw. I could get to his eyes. So working around him and getting those areas and teaching him how to be held for those over and over again. I mean, like I said, this is only about a 20-minute quickie. This was just kind of see if you can get some of the hair off that we chose to wait for Chrissy to come in, you know, which it's okay to kind of say, all right, you know what, this puppy is frustrating. And I could see how he would be really, really crazy in a bathtub. I didn't turn the dryer on, but I'm sure that the dryer would be something that he would find a little bit scary. It would be a process to get him dry, right? But super silly puppy. And an owner that now has some reasonable expectations. So, and which is hard because they're previous poodle owners and their last poodle and poodles of their lifetime have been the super, super calm, chilled out poodle, right? Like the dainty personality that's just always relaxed, you know, the things that they're describing. And I'm like, are you sure, even as a puppy? Because sometimes in the rearview mirror, it looks like it was all beautiful like that. They're like, no, they really were. We don't know what to do with this puppy. So when they came in, they weren't really thinking about what it takes to groom a dog. Now they have some realistic expectations. And the fact is that the next time he comes in, we'll introduce him to dryer sounds. You know, and then put him in the tub. See how he does with the dryer sounds. Put him in the tub. We can stack our day in such a way that the dog is figuring out, oh, that's not so scary. Oh, that's not so scary. In small bites, instead of what we tend to do, which is just go for it. We go for it. We're like, oh, good, he's finally holding still. There's no point with this puppy where I said no. Didn't need to. I'm not getting him frustrated, right? There's nothing to fight against because neither of us is getting frustrated. I know, let that sink in for a minute because that one's kind of weird to think about. But because there's no frustration, I never had to tell him to knock it off. I never had to express that that's wrong and I don't like it because I'm not letting him get to that point. Being patient and circling back till eventually, like I said, he was actually standing really still. Like I had cheers out and was scissoring his legs. Like he was standing really quite still. But he can only do it for so long. His attention span is about 30 seconds long. So just know that and work around it. There is a point where we say, this dog is going to have to know this as an adult. But there's also a point where we have to say, but he cannot yet think like an adult. Okay? And the kind of handling I'm doing with the puppy is actually what I would also do with an adult dog who's new or straight from rescue or is just extra, extra silly, because we see a lot of those. Same thing, same process. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Now let's talk about the training side of this little puppy. So before I got to meet him this week, the owner was told to call me about training, and she was interested in training. I believe she came to the shop without telling them that she was having problems with the puppy, just kind of expecting that, you buy a grooming package and it, ta-da, we made the magic wands and everything's great, right? So they wanted her to call a trainer. They gave her my name and said, by the way, she's in on Monday, But so some of the things we talked about and some things that you guys might notice too. Here's a woman who's had dogs before. She's very smart. She recognizes that her dog is smart too. They went to a breeder, right? They really did a lot of work to make sure they had the right dog. They just didn't get a personality type that they thought they were getting. Now, some of the ways she describes her dog, strong-willed, with biting issues, smart but needs some guidance, chewing everything. And she also told me that he's very sweet and cuddly. So this is kind of through text and stuff before we got a chance to talk. This was her reaching out saying, I'm having a problem with my 14-week-old puppy. And then apparently he wasn't good to groom. So I got talking to her about what it is that's going on. It turns out she's been getting lots and lots of advice and taking advice from every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And that's what we do. We all do it. Right? Like, hey, how do I get my lawn green? We talk to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And sometimes we're not really assessing if that applies to our dog. Does that apply to our lawn? Does it apply to our dog? Does it apply to your own kid and why they're not doing their homework? There are lots of reasons why kids don't do their homework. So she's having a lot of trouble kind of making those things meet. Like, all right, why isn't this working? So the puppy grabbies. Puppies are so grabby at that age. But it's normal play. So these are some of the things I'm telling her about before we do any training. Because my goal when I'm talking to somebody about training is to help them understand that they have a problem. I understand their problem. There are some ways they've been making their problem worse. And I can help them with a solution. Please sign up. Right? It's not free. And I want you guys to remember that too with grooming and stuff. Like spending extra time with a puppy, like you're not going to charge them $10 for a nail trim if it takes tons of people, right? There are things that we have to remember from a business point of view that, yeah, these things aren't free. So I'm talking to her about what her problems are. Here's some of the advice she's been following. When the puppy puts his teeth on you, grab his nose and say no. All right, who has heard that one before? I think we've all heard that one before. Let me tell you how that backfires. Because for some dogs, they're like, oh, wow, you seem mad. Okay, and I understand why some people have had success with doing that. For other dogs, their reason for putting teeth on you is to play and wrestle and to get your attention. So if you reach out with your hand and try to grab and say no, that's a wrestle. And what it turns into is the dog grabs you, then bounces away fast. And while you're trying to grab their face, they grab you 2 more times. Does that make sense? Because they're trying to wrestle and you're literally giving them the fun, even though you're upset. If you look at dogs that are really like hardcore, wrestly, athlete, sport type, goofballs like that, that's what they crave. And when they're playing with each other, they growl, they sound upset. It's part of the game. So they don't necessarily understand that we are angry if we're like, no, I'm gonna grab your nose, right? But that's actually how I play with my guys when I'm wrestling. I can get some dogs excited just by doing that. Just by going over and going, ready? I'm gonna grab you, and they're like, oh my God, I'll grab you first, right? It backfires for so many dogs that it should not be part of our go-to advice. Right? Grab his nose and say no, or pop him on the nose, should not be part of the go-to advice, because the amount of dogs that's going to help is pretty small. If instead we take a look at why this dog is doing it, then we can start coming up with a solution. In this particular case, this is a puppy who is still learning how to interact with people. He gets played with quite a bit, but when I talk to them more about it, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, we're with him all the time. So this isn't any sort of structured play. This is when the puppy gets bored, the puppy asks for play anytime at all, right? It's not like they're saying like, hey, come here, let's play time, right? They're not interacting that way, and that's kind of what the puppy needs. That's part of how you can get a little bit more control on that I need to wrestle, because they need it. I have 2 border collies that need a good wrestle. It's part of what they enjoy doing. So some breeds are a little bit more prone to this, needing that wrestle. But if you ever did sports, right? Like you get that kind of adrenaline rush from the, oh yeah, let's wrestle. Oh my God, this is fun, right? And sometimes you don't notice if you hit a little hard, okay? Because mine was sword fighting. You don't necessarily notice if you hit a little hard, or if you got hit a little hard, because you're wrestling and you're in the moment and there's this adrenaline rush going and there's lots of activity and lots of noise, right? If you can parallel that to some sport or some activity in your own life, then it can help you understand why for a puppy, they're playing around. They're like, I love to put my mouth on things, right? And what we need to do is kind of every time we have a mouth touch skin, express in some way that was too rough. That was too rough. And lonely puppy. Make that the, oh, I guess you want to be in the other room. Right? Now, one of the pieces of advice I gave them was to help them not make it worse by continuously grabbing this puppy's face and trying to tell him no, or bopping him on the nose, right? And I'm like, we know that's just making it worse, right? And they're in their 70s, right? They don't need to put their hand into the puppy wood chipper, their skin is getting a little bit thin and they're going to get hurt, and not because it's a mean puppy. But talk about frustration levels for the people. Meanwhile, he thinks it's hilarious. This is awesome. Growl some more. Get mad. Wow, you looked like you were really mad. Let me do it again. So my advice to them was, I want you to yelp like a puppy would, like an ow. And boring dog time. And that could be you step over a baby gate, or put the dog behind a baby gate, or put the dog in the crate immediately. Now, that's not using a crate as punishment, because she's told me everyone told her I can't use the crate for punishment. All right, take a deep breath, everybody, because I'm going to give you my take on this. We're not using the crate to be angry or to be mean. We're using the crate to put the puppy in there with a toy so that this owner's hand isn't in the wood chipper, right? So that this puppy is now, oh, apparently I just asked to go in the crate. I want that puppy to associate it with alone time. Alone time isn't bad. They're using the crate and the baby gates in other ways too. So alone time on its own isn't a bad thing. We have to be able to get these people to stop encouraging the fighting that they don't want. It's not safe. And we know what it does in the grooming shop. I'm pretty sure they had the same experience at the vet's office, right? So we know that this dog doesn't respond to the other hands-on versions. So yeah, put him in a crate. But they also need to learn more about how to play with their puppy and get that need for wrestling and get that need fulfilled. He has a need to wrestle and to be goofy, and that's part of who he is. Right? I need to wrestle and to be goofy. Right? My dogs are who I take it out on because I don't sword fight anymore, and each of my dogs wrestles differently. So, it's a trust game when we wrestle together. And right now, the puppy is breaking their trust and doesn't understand that because everything they do looks like it's fun. And if you're wondering, but that's not encouraging it because I applied a punishment, I told him no. If the behavior does not decrease, it was not punishing. Punishment, in training terms, is the measure of behavior change, and it measures decreased behavior. This behavior is steady and increasing. So what is it doing? It is reinforcing. Yeah, the measure of behavior that is staying the same or increasing is reinforcement. So even though the human intention is to grab the nose and say no, or to bop the nose and say no, or to do something else that's kind of like, I need to tell you how stern I'm being, right? If the intention is to punish it, we have to look back and say, that is not what's happening. Even if it would happen with another dog, that's okay. We have to look at the science and clearly assess, is the behavior decreasing? It's not. It's actually increasing. So that means that this puppy is having a good time with all of those efforts to squash that behavior. I know. A lot of us are like, wait, no, because I thought I was being really stern. I was taught to be stern. I was taught we have to tell them that this is the way it is, right? But that's not the way it plays out for many, many dogs. Now, some dogs are super sensitive. And if you let out a stern no, some dogs turn into a puddle on the floor and will never do it again. Okay? So it's not about it never works or always works. But look at the puppy in front of you and the behavior. Is it increasing or decreasing? And what specifically are they doing? Now, and another thing for groomers to know, because we talk about like telling people they aren't buying a box of dog grooming with a can of DMAT, like this is a service industry. When I pitched them training lessons, they're like, oh, you know what though? That seems like a lot. Like, but you are literally having this problem with a puppy who's grabbing at your hands. They're like, well, we'll follow your advice. I'm like, all I did was tell you some of the ways that you can stop making it worse. I didn't tell you how to teach him. I didn't tell you how to teach him how to play with you properly, right? Like, you still need to learn that. It's like, oh, well, we'll just keep going. It's like, so they took the time to go to a breeder, but just something in their own mind isn't clicking that we're trying to sell them a solution. Much like grooming is trying to sell a nice haircut, but it's not necessarily the same price for everybody. And actually, one of the ways I expressed that to them, if this helps any of the trainers out there or the groomers out there, we don't pay plumbers to turn a wrench. Like, we could break down what plumbers do as turning wrenches and, measuring stuff, but there's so much more to their job, right? I'm not paying him to turn a wrench. I'm paying a plumber to hook up my water systems properly, right? There's a knowledge base. And if the plumber says it's going to take X amount of hours at X amount of rate, and then these supplies, then that's what it's going to take. And if he gets in there and finds out that there's some rust, my price is going to go up. We can parallel with that, right? We can parallel with that. We can't just sell you like the same trim, same price for every dog. Whether your dog is really, really good, or your dog's really, really matted, or your dog's going to scratch the heck out of us, it'll be the same price because that's what we're selling. No, we're a service. So we need to remind people we are a service. This is a service that we provide. It involves hands-on time and expertise. As your groomer, I'm going to tell you, it would be awesome to get that 14-week-old puppy into a gorgeous little trim. But you know what? He has no idea what we're doing. And at home, they're not following good advice at home. And it's not their fault, right? But they're having problems at home, and it's not like he's going to be perfect angel on the grooming table until some of that resolves. So at least we communicated that. Like, this has to resolve more, but he can be learning here. But he's not going to get that full, gorgeous, everything, beautiful trim. Like, I didn't try poodle feet on him or anything today. No. Well, not today. Now we're on to Tuesday. Yes, I'm recording this morning for you guys to hear it this afternoon. But I didn't try poodle feet. No. Does she deserve poodle feet right now? Do those owners deserve poodle feet right now? Have they done anything toward like touching their dog all over and helping him be good? Not yet. And not because they're bad people. They're awesome people. I really like these people and I really like this dog, but they're not ready for that yet, right? If they want poodle feet, you got to put in some work, right? And I think sometimes as groomers, we kind of forget that. We're like, oh, he's a poodle. Got to do it unless they ask for something different or try to sell him something different. Well, we can just say, he's not ready. Not ready. And he will be if we follow some protocols, if we work on this. So silly puppies. Sometimes we have to talk to the owners, find out what's going on at home. Sometimes we have to refer them to a trainer. Sometimes they don't want to sign up, right? Maybe they'll find a group class, but part of the problem is right now it's COVID-19 and there's social distancing. And even in a group class, they're going to have their dog on the end of their leash, trying to figure it out. So like my programs right now are online Zoom conferencing, doing private lessons so that I can see your dog in their natural environment and I can be as close as you can put your computer. I just can't put my hands on your dog. Pretty cool. But, you know, there's a generation that has a lot of worry about that. plenty of worries about that. So be thinking about, as trainers, the kind of things that we work on, that grabby bitey stuff, we need to help a dog be good about that. And if that means telling an owner that they can put their dog behind a baby gate or in a crate, then go ahead and tell them that. They can't just keep their hand in front of this puppy and just try to work on it. And that's what they do. If we tell them putting them in a crate is bad, that's what they do. They're stuck with a hand in the wood chipper and getting frustrated and getting angry, and the puppy is doing more and more and more of it. And then they go to the groomer, and the groomer's like, they went to a trainer? Are you freaking kidding me? Groomers don't throw trainers under the bus. Trainers don't throw groomers under the bus. Sometimes we're sharing a customer who isn't getting it, who isn't listening, who isn't understanding, or is having trouble implementing. Sometimes our shared customer is just not understanding it all. If you'd like more information, you can find me at chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.